Really got to change the intro to video. I feel like, Nathan. I think it's time. I feel like it's time.
It's just getting older. Okay, that's
fair. I just kind of feel like maybe we need to up it up a little bit. You know, maybe we need to do a new one. But
can we get like an old like Family Matters introduction where it's like you making dinner and then you turn around and you're like, and then it's like your name that scrolls underneath.
Whatever gets happened me, which I think you sent me this video this morning, and I'm not gonna play that video. But last night I was lying in bed. My wife, who has been Bianca, has been kind of like not feeling well the last couple days. She was coughing up and runny nose, the whole 9 yards. And anyways, we need to play this video. Because first off, the Family Guy, like the greatest cartoon, I think.
I agree.
Ever. I mean, because it's like The Simpsons is great too. I love The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
But this show, it like finds the anecdotes and the real life scenarios where it's like the things that we do or have to subject ourselves to. You need to watch this, and hopefully it'll.
Need to move? No problem. Take it yourself with U-Haul.
But I've never driven a truck before.
No problem. U-Haul lets anyone drive a giant truck, even though it's dangerous, because, hey, you're moving.
Sorry, I'm making a go of it in a new city.
I'm sorry.
It's the bits. It's the bits. And it's the greatest part about it is that South Park and the rest of them hated Family Guy because it was all bits. What's up, Peter? But I love it, man. The stupid humor is my favorite, absolute favorite.
The best part about it is like, you got it's like, yeah, you've never driven a big truck before. It's okay because you're moving. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And it's funny because you think about it and go, why the hell are we driving these vehicles?
Yeah.
Why are we driving them?
Why?
And to be fair, which leads me to a story. Like last year at this time, it was in February. I don't know if it was in March. It might have been in March, but my wife at the time was working at Granite City in Troy, and they needed new chairs and tables. And one of the restaurants had to close down in Minneapolis. St. Cloud area had a whole bunch. I mean, hundreds of them. And so her company flew us to Minneapolis. We rented a U-Haul and then took the U-Haul and drove it back to Michigan full of chairs, full of tables. It was terrible. It was a terrible, because, your U-Hauls are not meant for comfort. They're not meant for anything but a purpose of getting your gear to where it's got to go. And in most cases is not there like in one piece.
And they are behemoths.
You don't drive. Well, it was a 30. We got like a 26-footer. I mean, so I'm driving through, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, right? I'm actually part of Indiana too, because you kind of go Indiana. So I'm driving through all that toll roads. You want to park this thing at a hotel overnight. Yeah. Anyways, it just. That whole U-Haul thing just kind of reminds me of what I did here last year. But anyway, Jonathan alongside Nathan Wangler. I didn't even introduce ourselves this morning. But you're watching Inside the Game here live on YouTube and Roku, as well as Twitter and Facebook. And we're happy to have you along wherever you're watching near and far. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, like us, share this with your friends and family. And but but yeah, that's the intro to our show this morning. Is just you can't
I
go
don't
wrong.
like
We
it.
should actually maybe do a Family Guy intro like every morning. Just find a Family Guy intro and just roll it.
Well, I actually posted a couple of days ago on my story because I told you I did the public address announcing down in South Bend. Sometimes you want to go inside the game. I'll take you inside the game. If you want to work in sports, and I'm saying this to everybody, whether it's on this screen that's in front of me or this screen that's off to my left because I'm on TikTok Live right now. If you want to work in sports, you got to realize sometimes you're going to go through stretches, especially in crossover seasons, where you're going to go about 3 weeks where you're doing something every day. Like it is what it is. You got stuff on the weekends, you got stuff during the weeks, and so that transition, because I went from conference championship game, semifinal to championship to that swim competition, and then obviously back home and doing this and getting the videos out. There's always something I can be doing, and basically there is always something that I am doing. And so the other day I posted on my story. Have you ever seen the Peter shopping list bit where Lois sends them to the shopping store to get items? I think, what did she want? A loaf of butter, a container of milk, and or loaf of bread, a container of milk, and a stick of butter. And he's like hopping along the sidewalk, and it's in reference to like an old 50s cartoon or something, and he ends up getting all the items wrong at the end, and he walks out with everything he doesn't need. It's just there's a bit for everything in that show. And so that's what I posted on my story. But no, I agree. Let's do that. Let's loop in a few new ones. Oh, hey, the National Soccer Network's watching me do my show on the National Soccer Network. We're in the Matrix.
That is crazy. That's craziness. It's craziness. Well, yesterday we got into a conversation where we talked about some important things relating to the world we live in, and the media side of this, the social media side, responsibility, things like that. We talked about that quite a bit. I did want to dive in yesterday into this conversation about the FIFA Club Soccer World Cup, which is coming up here in a few months. So we'll dive into that today. And I know that, again, we discussed kind of, not discussed kind of, we had this kind of good, it was a good conversation. And I think everything that we talk about in regards to like stuff like that yesterday, it all resonates into the overall encompassing thing that we're trying to do here on this show, right? Because we talk about from the inside the game standpoint. I think the average person who's coming in for the first time, I watch and say, "Well, this is a soccer podcast." It is. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I got lambasted here a few weeks ago for not wearing any soccer gear. So, now I have it on, right? I mean, Nathan did not get the memo. He's wearing Tiger gear, and so
Caps,
man.
man.
Did not get the memo, but we are, and we've talked about spotting boards and how we prepare for games. We've talked about a lot of different things associated with kind of our roles in broadcasting. And in the coming days, in the weeks, we will kind of get into what our upgrades have been here in our studio, and what we're doing here, because that's going to be really, really cool. But I wanted to talk this morning real quick before we dive into this topic. Here back in February, we had announced our departure from the Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association. And for those of you that knew, we were doing this ranking show here in Michigan. Matter of fact, when we first got started back in 2022, I had reached out to the Coaches Association and said, "Hey, I have an idea. I would love to elevate the game of soccer, high school soccer, in this state, and I want to do a ranking show. And I would like to do it exclusively with you. I would like to take your rankings, include those in the show, and let's highlight these high school players." At first, they were kind of like, "What is this thing? What are you trying to do here?" And then when we started to do it, then it became like, "Holy crap, this is a pretty cool thing," right? And back last October, we had kind of a snafu where another entity here locally in Michigan had gotten access to the rankings before our show, and they had actually released them, I think, accidentally before our show, and that created a problem. And I told them, I'm like, hey, I go, this is something this is not a hobby for me. I want to make that abundantly clear to anybody out there.
Yeah.
All right. This is not a hobby for me. This is a company. This is a career. It is full-fledged. I mean, when I tell people the kind of payroll we have, they actually congratulate me. And I don't know if I should be congratulating or I should be crying. Right? I don't know if they realize our payroll is a lot. And again, and so it's like, should I be crying or but that's congratulations. I'm like, oh, I get thank you. It's kind of weird when someone says that, I guess, but our payroll is tremendous, right? So it's not a hobby. So when something goes against what we're trying to do, you better believe that we're going to be upset about it or be frustrated or voice our opinion about what we could do differently, right? So we did that, and the Coaches Association was very good about it. Like, hey, they looked into it, they realized what had happened, and they corrected it. But what that led to was a conversation with them about like what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and is there a better way? And in my opinion, our way is the only way. Nathan just disappeared, so don't know where Nathan went. We will find out where he went here in a moment. Saying he got glitched out. So we'll get him back here in a second. But what I was saying is that, that we felt that our way, what we were doing, was the only way. And again, you're always going to be crossing hairs, and you're always going to be kind of in different scenarios where people don't always agree with you. They wanted to kind of open it up to a lot of different entities to do the same thing that we were doing so that, they could get more exposure to the game of soccer. And I do agree that the more exposure you have, the better. From our proprietary standpoint and from what we were doing, we didn't want to maybe share that with anybody, but understood it. So we announced back in February that we were stepping away from the Coaches Association, not because we have a bad relationship with them, not because of all this, but we felt that, hey, if we wanted to do a ranking show, we were going to have to separate ourselves from them anyways. And let's go ahead and try and do it in a very respectful way. And what we also found is that a lot of the players here in Michigan, a lot of the coaches and schools, they still wanted us to do some kind of a ranking show. So the ranking show that everyone is used to and know will continue to happen here on our platform. As there is Nathan, we're going to back in now. See what? Well, maybe he's still kind of loading up here. There we go. You all right, buddy?
Doing all right. Computer had a little meltdown there for a second. We're good though. We're back.
So
Anyway,
as you were kind of fading off into, nowhere land, I was just talking about how, their Coaches Association wanted to kind of open this up to the rest of the world as far as entities to be able to maybe also do their own show and to release the rankings. And that's kind of where we had a conflict. And it wasn't a conflict in the way that I was like, hey, it was just, again, my opinion or our opinion about it, their opinion. They wanted to kind of share it with everybody. And again, whether I agree with it or not really doesn't matter. We announced our departure back in February because as part of our growth model, we knew that partnering with 49 other states and their Coaches Association was going to be a monumental task. So we wanted to create kind of our own internal processes for ranking players. So that was the big reason why we made that announcement. The Coaches Association is still going to release rankings to us on Sundays. And then we will still provide a live show Sunday nights at 8 p.m. hosted by a number of people. We'll talk about that here. We've already made some announcements about that, but that will be hosted by different hosts. And it will not be presented by the Coaches Association, right? That partnership is over. but we will be provided the rankings from them every Sunday so we can produce our shows. And I know for a lot of people that it's really exciting. It's exciting for us. We will continue to be a world-class provider of those rankings live each and every Sunday night. That will not change. Now it's just the audience will get a little bigger. The audience will get a little more information across the country about what's going on in Michigan, and that's great for all things soccer, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah. Well, we're based on it. We're based out of Michigan, so there's also that element to it too. And it was also always a constant reminder, even when we were expanding. And I remember you telling me this too, like, we're not just going to ditch our Michigan coverage. We can't do that because that's kind of where, that's where the growth started. That's where the company started. And obviously with how many years you guys have under your belt of doing those shows and being a part of that. And, obviously the post-game award ceremonies and everything that we've done in Michigan, at least as a company that you guys have done in Michigan, at least leading up to when I joined you, there's no way you can just up and abandon that, and the other thing is like familiarity with the teams. We know the teams, we know the areas, we know a lot of the coaches. And so that's kind of the insider stuff that has allowed us to do that little bit extra. And again, this is why it's important, because what we're doing kind of sets us aside from the rest of the field when it comes to the sport of soccer. And it is because this isn't just a hobby. This isn't just something we're doing just for fun. It's not something we just like soccer, so we're just doing it. No, like this is our business model. And so we don't want to give up covering the people who have been following us, because those, for the most part, when you talk about our following or the people that pay attention the most, a lot of them come from where we started, which is right here in the state of Michigan. And I know, at least when I was doing my coverage of, particular athletes or making videos of this or that, everybody was really receptive, specifically Traverse City. I don't know what it is with Traverse City and your platform. I think they make up a good portion of the following, and they loved when I talked about Aiden Orth, who was he was a beast, man, at TC West last year. But we can't abandon the people that really, in a lot of ways, kind of built that foundation for us. And I know that you said that all along. And when you made that announcement, with the transactions between the Coaches Association and what everything was going down, we were transitioning. Even there was a question in my mind. I'm like, okay, does this mean we're officially kind of fading away from all that? No, I mean, we're not. And for good reason too, because we know this state, we know it like the back of our hand. And, we want to get better at expanding, but it's going to be a lot harder, and it's going to take more time to get to that same level in California, in Arizona, in any of these other states than it is to get here in Michigan. But that's
everybody's going to want their own, right? Everybody's going to want
their
own kind. And so we know those are all things that, we will do. And I think it's important, to state, that I'm a firm believer in this too, by the way. I've always talked about competition, right? Competition is good. It's good in all aspects. It's good in player development. It's good in business. It's good in a personal environment, right? I mean, think about this, right? If you can go to the gym with a friend of yours and you can compete in the gym environment, right? That can help, right, in a lot of ways too with your development as far as you lifting weights and things like that, right? So everything in competition is good.
Yeah.
And when the Coaches Association came to me and said, hey, we want to open this up to other entities, we of course, you want to, I'm gonna say you want to stop it, but you want to kind of have an understanding of what you're looking, what you're trying to accomplish, what's the goal, right?
Right.
Because the biggest fear that I would have with anything, if other entities, other organizations are doing what we do, is it going to dilute, right? Is it going to dilute? Is it going to hurt? Is it going to create something, take away from something, right? We again, if the exposure is going to come and it helps elevate, then all about it. But if you're now, okay, the same viewers that are coming to us now go someplace else, all we're doing is splitting viewers, and now they don't necessarily know where it's coming from. So is it hurted? So that was the biggest concern that I had about all this. And
Right.
and again, the rankings are the rankings. They're very arbitrary. They are A lot of times it's based off of, I would say, limited information, but it's based off of information that may or may not be 100% accurate, right? Because you're asking volunteers, you're asking coaches to try to get a pulse each and every week of teams around the state, whether that's in Michigan or anywhere else in this country. They're trying to get a pulse of what's going on, and they rely heavily on other coaches to give them the information. They're relying heavily on a number of factors to be able to pull this thing off. And a lot of it's based off of an opinion. A lot of it's based off of what they've done historically. Hey, this team won a state championship last year, so because of that, they should be here in this conversation, right? They should be in this conversation, right? So all those things go into all of this. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing that we heard each and every week on a consistent basis is, where are you getting these rankings from? And we would say they're coming from the Coaches Association. They're not our rankings. They're coming from the Coaches Association.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of times too, when we were having that conversation or that dialogue about, hey, if you aren't happy with where your team is ranked, you need to reach out to your division chair. And there was this disconnect between what the Coaches Association kind of wanted from us, from that vocal standpoint, the voice, and telling people hey, where you need to go. Because we would say, like, hey, if you don't think you're being ranked in the right place, then your coach should reach out to your division chair. Well, they heard reach out to division chair, and it was moms and dads calling or reaching out. So now that created a problem, right? And the one thing I said is that the rankings, to have a clear understanding, it used to be on Sunday nights or Mondays, the Coaches Association would just push rankings on their website and they'd be listed there. There was no ta-da, there was no flair.
Grand presentation,
So here we're now 3 years into this, or whatever, and we're out there, and we're now not only releasing the rankings, but we're also giving them an explanation. We're explaining that so-and-so Troy Athens is 10-5-1, and they have 9 state championships in their history, and they got 7 players who are going to be all state. We're giving an explanation. We're giving a synopsis of each team on some level, which would then on some level verify or validate why a ranking is what it is. So we would do that. And so my point of view is that what we've done with the rankings here in Michigan is we have made them a place where there's now a conversation that can happen in a very positive, even if it looks from a negative standpoint, it's positive, because now people are going, well, before it was kind of like, well, I don't understand why we're not ranked. Now there's like, okay, well, here's what they told us.
All right.
Is it fair? So the conversation has just changed in a new way. It's not it's more public. Right? It's not as private. And to be fair, the players and the teams get really excited about seeing their name, seeing their team on a live TV show. So that was like the really cool thing about all this.
But it creates storylines. Yeah.
Well, it does, especially if we're covering the games, right? Especially if we're talking about from us and we're out there covering these games on a week in and week out basis, and we're seeing top ranked teams being played in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Right. We're seeing them. We're calling these games. And of course, you're going to say, okay, well, that's cool. Okay, I know why. Now I see why this team is ranked. We talked about this past year. Which team was ranked the entire season high in the OAA? Rochester Adams.
Yeah.
Troy High, right?
Yep.
Troy Athens.
Mm-hmm.
Those teams were ranked. Berkeley in the boys season, right? Who won the state championship? Rochester Adams.
Yeah.
And who did we say was going to win the damn thing? Rochester Adams.
Yeah.
Right? Not because we thought that not because they were ranked high, but because we saw them like 7 times. We knew how good they were.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're asking me like, hey, who do you think is going to win the whole damn thing? Well, I can tell you from who I've seen throughout the course of a season, what Dan is hearing from coaches, the players that are coming back, we know. Like, we know. Yeah. Like 2 years ago, Stony Creek won the whole thing for girls.
Yeah.
We knew that Stony Creek was unbelievable. Last year, Rochester Adams was very good. So Rochester Adams, girls and boys, swept the season, swept it last year, right? So spring and fall, back to back, right? Awesome. We knew that. So when we're standing here in front of these cameras on Sunday nights, you better believe that our staff, our crew, our people are all acutely aware of how these teams perform, and we'll be the first ones to say this doesn't make any sense. We will. I'll stand up there and say, nope, this doesn't make any sense. We'll call coaches and say, are you sure this is right? Because this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
we'll do that. Because if you want us to be like that trusted source, we have to call into question the rankings.
Yeah. But on the other end of things, it's not always going to make sense where teams are ranked. I mean, look at any sport across the board. You will see preseason rankings. And then as the season goes along, you begin to learn, okay, well, those were based off of, as you talked about, and when it's one of the key pillars of how these rankings come about is history. Okay, they have a history of doing these things, or there's a reason why they're in this place, that they've earned this spot just from what they've done in past years. Oftentimes, past years, not always the greatest indicator of what's going to happen in the year coming up. And we've seen that, right? So it creates storylines in that way, though. Oh, this team's really high, and then they lost early, and then they got bumped down. So there's that aspect to it, too. The other thing, though, and I'll go the opposite way, because you were talking about the big boys, and sometimes I think, especially when you have the OAA Red to your disposal. And I always tell people, like, that is the greatest soccer conference in Michigan. And there really is no second. There's really no, I mean, it's them, and then it's the rest of the pack. And so I think it's somewhat easy to at least give, Adams or Troy or one of those teams the nod to be the best team in Division I. But I'll go the opposite way, because I know we've done all the different divisions. But at the lowest division, like I remember last year covering that Detroit Cristo Rey, just a small little private school, inner city Detroit, very, very strong Hispanic population, a big soccer culture, but they're relatively fresh on the scene. And I remember covering them, and I mean, they were out there like they were playing in a park. I mean, the way they were passing, the way they were moving the ball, the way that they played together. And it's funny because when you looked at the roster, there were 3 Salinas. There were 2 other Urias, however they pronounce it. There, and even the coach, I think, was related to one of the players. So you could tell that this was almost like a family gathering. Anytime they went out to go play the game, it was like just a group of guys who were all brothers or cousins, and they were all going to go get after you. They were ranked first place for a little bit there. And mind you, this is a program that hadn't really done anything because, again, they were still fresh on the scene and trying to build something. And so that gave us the availability. When we talked about Detroit Cristo Rey was in first place, it was like, it almost kind of felt like breaking news a little bit. Like, hey, here's this team that hasn't done anything. They're still relatively fresh, relatively new, but they're the best team in this division. So that's the side of it. And I know that, in other sports, they have ranking shows and they have stuff, but to my knowledge, I've never seen anything as kind of official as the format that we do it in. But that's what makes our job special, though, JT, is like the storylines kind of create themselves. But especially when we do these ranking shows, we give people kind of a look into why certain teams are in the certain spots that they're in. And that's really key for what we bring into the game in terms of storylines, in terms of the play-by-play side of things. And we need that in order to really phrase our broadcast the way that we want to. And so that's the really nice part about that.
This is where I think it's really cool, right? So this is how we track the rankings each and every week. So this, I don't know if you've ever seen this document before or not, Nathan, but it's a Google Doc, and we have literally every week of rankings for the entire season. So in here, this is preseason. So look at preseason Division I. You've got Rochester Adams is right here. Okay, Rochester Adams. We'll look at where they were ranked like week 5, and then we'll look again here where they were ranked in maybe like the last week of the season. So this is week 5 right here, D1. Okay, they were ranked 5th. They were ranked 5th in D1, week 5 of the rankings. Okay, we'll go all the way down here now to the last week, week 8. Okay, they were ranked 5th. Okay, that's where they were ranked. Portage Central, Northville, Troy High, Oxford, all ahead of them going into the last rankings of the season. Okay. Rochester Adams won this thing. Okay. They won the whole thing. Right? So if we look at Division 2 in the preseasons, Division 2, who's on this list? All right. Warren De La Salle, right here. Okay. Now they played Grand Rapids, Forest Hills Northern, right? So look at here, Forest Hills Central. I don't even see Forest Hills Northern on this list. Okay. Well, let's take a look and see where they were here week 4. We'll go week 4. D2. Well, we'll do week 3. They were 1 week 3, right? Is Forest Hills Northern in here? They're right there. They're 12, right? Go to week 8. Here, do D2, week 8. Here we go. Warren De La Salle was ranked 2nd. Forest Hills Northern was ranked 10th. Again, those two saw each other in a state final. Warren De La Salle won it. Right? So, and if you look here, you can actually see, this is the cool thing. I keep track of like how many changes have happened throughout the course of a season. Warren De La Salle was ranked number 1 the first 3 weeks of the season. Then it was Holland. Then it was Fruitport the rest of the way. Right? So Rochester Adams was never ranked number 1. Never. They won the whole thing. Right?
Yeah.
So like these are like, so when we track this is we track. So if I look at Division 3 was Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. So Notre Dame Prep, they were week 1, right? They were there 3, then Country Day, and then Notre Dame Prep. So Notre Dame Prep, on brand, they were ranked number 1 6 out of the 8 weeks, and they end up winning it. Right? And then we look at Division 4, which Muskegon Western Michigan Christian won it. They played Plymouth Christian Academy in the finals. None of those teams are here, right? So, right, you look at Granville Calvin and Lansing Christian were the ones in the semifinals. Lansing Christian, you see here, they were ranked 5 out of the 8 weeks, right? So, like that's so you know, you can look at this and say, okay, well, Notre Dame Prep on brand, Rochester Adams, they were never ranked number 1, but they were ranked high every single week. But these are the kind of things that we know we can look at and say, okay, trends. I have this data from the last 3 years.
Oh.
Right. So we can look at that and say, okay, well, why is that? Well, we know why.
Yeah.
We know why. OA Red has been the number 1 league conference in the state. No question about it.
Yeah.
If you think about who has won over the last 3 years in Division 1, Rochester Adams, Troy Athens, Rochester Adams, right? So that's just the boys, right? So in the last 3 seasons in the fall, it's been Rochester Adams twice, Troy Athens. That's 3 OAA Red teams. Okay. Now that's just boys.
Right.
Let's take a look at girls. Girls, Division 1. Last year, Rochester Adams. Before that, Rochester Hills, Stony Creek. Before that, Bloomfield Hills. So again, the last 6 state champions in the state of Michigan at the high school level on both boys and girls side,
Right,
is OAA Red teams. So right now, in Division 1, OAA Red is the league.
Right.
Now, if someone is dethroned this year and someone from the OAA Red does not win it, then the argument can become, well, who is the next best conference? They're going to have to do it consistently for a period of time, but at least, you could say that. But
and that's that's the hard thing. And I would say that to, and I know you've mentioned in the past that you've had people kind of call in and complain, well, why are we ranked here? Why aren't we ranked? The reason why rankings work out the way that they do is because certain programs have proven beyond reasonable doubt consistently for a stretch of time, they should be in that conversation. And the hard thing is like, people might think, okay, well, there's maybe an East Side bias going on here, or there's, certain teams ranked at the top, and then maybe the West Side doesn't get as much love. It's funny. I was over at Forest Hill Central doing games. Their head coach actually remembered me, oddly enough, saw me at one of the college basketball games I was doing, came up, said hi. So clearly in the 2 games that I did there, I made an impression. But the people say that, well, there might be a little bit of an East Side bias. Well, here's the thing. The East Side kind of runs things, especially in certain divisions when it comes to soccer. If you want to be ranked higher, prove that you can be ranked higher. I mean, if Forest Hills Northern wins that game last year, then maybe the conversation changes coming into this year. Maybe we're talking a little bit different about, okay, maybe the West Side has a little bit something more, because frankly, Adams made that run to the state championship unimpeded. I mean, it really was. It was one of the more impressive runs. And I remember between you and me, and I think Dan was pretty much in the same line of thinking. They assembled the Avengers last year is what they did, in pulling guys out of academies and bringing them all back for one more go and to try to bring that state championship back, because they had, obviously had fallen short previously. So that to us just seemed like a straightaway that there's no way that they don't end up pulling this thing out. And of course they did, but that's where we are. And with me being a West Side kid, I'm born and raised in Grand Rapids, going over there and seeing how it's done on that side, in the facilities and the players and everything like that, you begin to gain an understanding. Yeah, there are more teams and there are more players and more just individuals over here, but it's the same exact way in football. The West Side, we have a lot of good teams, but it gets a little bit different when you run into the Caztecs, when you run into, Country Day was great for all those years, when you run into, what Farmington used to be, or Farmington Hills Harrison and Brother Rice. And, it's a different level when you get there. And again, the nice thing is again, you only have to deal with them really for one game, because you're not, unless you schedule an East Side team during the regular season, which has happened. I mean, I remember playing Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the opening week a couple of times, and that was dumb. I learned a lot. We all learned a lot, but when you're playing against the likes of Allen Robinson and some of the other guys that were on that team, I don't know how many made it to the NFL. I think Allen Robinson was the only one that actually made it to the NFL, but there were a few Michigan guys or a couple other D1 guys. Like, you learn a lot, but what I will say is that if you think there's an East Side bias, it's not necessarily a bias. It's just that these teams have proven historically that they deserve to be in those top spots. Adams, Troy, all of these teams, and the other thing to keep in mind, JT, and this drives me bonkers. This drives me up a wall. Just because your record is better doesn't mean your resume is better, right? You have to be able to separate those two things, because record only tells you one thing, right? That's how many games you've won. But what's the competition you've played? That's my question. Resume, on the other hand, is that you've beaten the good teams, you've won state championships, you've been there. Also, the level of competition might be better in a certain area than it is in others. Now, I don't know how much that factors into these rankings, but there is that aspect to it too. You can't just say, well, we're undefeated, so we deserve a spot in the top 10. What is the competition that you're playing? What kind of competition are you going up against? And I think we saw that a little bit in the state championship Saturday that I did with you this previous season. There are teams that made it there, and I think like Elk Rapids was probably a good example. In a lot of ways, they were outmanned and outgunned, but they made it work and they made it a competitive game. I think they only finished the game with nine kids. Well, there were 3 red cards in that game. Was that the one where we had the Donnybrook towards the end? I forget. And then they ended up putting a goal in with 9 dudes. I don't know, something like that. So, I mean, they put up a fight, but there's a reason why that bias or maybe that favoritism exists. And it's because the soccer over here is, and I say over here, I'm actually sitting in Grand Rapids right now, but the soccer on the East Side is impressive. And the OAA Red is the one place to look. So I'm just trying to give people maybe a look into why these rankings are the way that they are. Again, I'm not behind the decisions that make them, but they make more sense to me. And again, those storylines are really nice because we carry those into our play-by-play. And if anything, it's almost nice to see a team that was ranked 10th go to the state championship. That's better for us. That's better for us than lying and claiming that you're number 2, and then you get there and, oh, you're supposed to be here all along. Oh, no, they made a run, a Cinderella run. That glass slipper fits. So, and it did at least until the last game, for Forest Hills Northern. So, that's why, if you're thinking, well, maybe there's a little bit of added boost to some of the teams that are over in Detroit, there's a reason for that, and it's deserved. It's not undeserved. It's deserved, especially given a lot of their resumes.
No, yeah, I mean, the parity is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time. And parity creates emotional responses that elevate viewership, a number of other factors in sports. And so, if you have a team that was ranked 11th or 12th and they find a way to have success, in a state championship run and go all the way to a final, that's huge, right? You've also got these David versus Goliath type moments too, right? Where, you've got a team that is supposed to lose, right? A team that has no business winning, finding a way to win, right? We've seen that time and time again in sports, and that's a really great thing about sports. What we're talking about is water cooler mumbo jumbo, right? It's it doesn't mean anything. I say this all the time. At the end of the day, rankings mean jack shit.
They don't even nothing.
They don't mean anything.
No.
What matters is what you do on the field from the time the referee blows his whistle to the time the game comes to an end. And if you can be at the end of that game, with the victory, then that's all that matters. What we say, what the rankings say doesn't mean anything. And go out there and prove everybody wrong. I mean, because the reality is this, is that we knew based on personnel, okay? If you just every year think about who are the top college football teams in the land, okay? Historically, up until last year, you could have argued it would be Alabama, right? Let's be honest. Up until last year, Nick Saban leaves. Is Alabama still going to be in that conversation every year? Maybe. But I would argue that he was a big reason why they had their success, right? Big reason. Great recruiter. All right, that Alabama, right? So we could argue that every year we're going to see Alabama in a final. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to see him again, right? For a long time, Tom Brady was in the Patriots, right? What were we thinking? Every year, Patriots, finals, Super Bowl, right? Patrick Mahomes, right? Kansas City Chiefs. Every year we're going to see him in Super Bowl. It's a debate that happens every year now. In college football, right? Who is the team that you're going to see now? Typically going to be in those playoffs. Is it a Georgia? Is it Alabama? Is it Michigan? Is it Ohio State? Right? Who are those teams? But every year we all start the season off going, I think those 4 teams are going to be there, right? Those 2 teams are going to be there. They're already saying who's winning the Super Bowl next year. It's already a conversation.
No.
Why? Because it sparks an emotion that gets people upset. What we talked about yesterday with Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
Let's get people excited. Let's get people upset. Let's create some controversy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what we can do, and what does that mean to the sport? It means you pay attention.
Right.
It means you stay relevant when there's no relevancy to even be had. Right? The NFL right now has done a tremendous job of staying relevant for 12 months a year. They've done a fantastic job with that. You've got, college football used to do a good job with that. I don't think they do that anymore a full year because there's nothing happening between really outside of the transfer portal, but nothing really happens in the world of college football from January the 5th through like spring season football, right? Spring football game, right? But spring football has been like this thing where they turn TVs on and you're covering it. But other than us kind of talking about it, there's not a lot really happening in college football land in those periods. But man, as soon as the Super Bowl is over with, it becomes combine. Right? Then there's free agency. Then there's the draft, right? Then there's, OTAs and it's like they all year round, man. They own 12 months a year. It used to not be that way, but they have done a tremendous job. And to be fair, I think they're the only sport that does a really good job with this. I don't think baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey do great with this. I don't think that they do.
Well, yeah, obviously the NFL is head and shoulders above it. They always will be. There's no There's no question about that. To the true dorks and to the true ones that actually follow it step by step, I think recruiting and transfer portal and all that stuff is really fun. I mean, I find myself on 247 Sports pretty much at 2 times a week. So there are storylines and things happening in all those sports all year round. But you're right. No, the NFL has separated itself in that way. But that's you mentioned the making the creating momentum. That's that side of it. It's even teams that maybe don't necessarily deserve to be in the certain spot that they're in that are just given that because of the brand, because of what exactly they represent. But you're right. No, you're right, JT, 100%. The NFL has done that in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and it's, and when we talk about the rankings at the high school level, we are creating a buzz about the game.
Right.
A buzz that otherwise wouldn't be there. Right. It happens. It doesn't happen really in the off season, right? It happens from March 16th through the end of May when the high school girls soccer playoffs start here in Michigan.
Right.
And so we create a buzz about it. And it's fun and it's exciting. It's engaging. We get the viewers at home to partake in who they think is going to be ranked, where they're going to be ranked at. It's really fun. They're really, really fun. So I don't, for 1 second, I do believe that there is a way for us to continue to do that across this country for other teams as well, other states. It's just a matter of creating those doors, open those doors, and those relationships so that we can provide this same service, this same platform to those states as well. But with that being said, we're really excited about this. We're really excited about the opportunity to continue to have this conversation about girls and boys high school soccer players here in the state of Michigan, their teams. It allows us to have these dialogues and these conversations that will elevate their play. And, this year we're going to continue to try to find new ways to do that. We have a brand new studio set up and brand new host. Patty Cesarini will be the full-time host of that show starting here April the 6th. Kennedy Broadwell will be our preseason host here starting on Sunday. So she'll do all of our watch list. Both of those young ladies will help us with the Women's Premier Soccer League this summer, where they will host halftime shows for us and other shows. So, I firmly believe that the girls soccer environment, deserves a female voices in those roles. And they've got them. I think Patty and Kennedy will both tell you that they're not like soccer, like extraordinary. They're not soccer background, but they are pros. And what they'll do is they'll stand alongside Dan Stickrad each and every week and allow Dan to do his thing, which is to talk about the great game of soccer in Michigan because of his encyclopedia of knowledge. And they will help lead the show in a way that has not been led before. And we're excited about that.
Yeah, Patty's a pro. Getting to at least just do that one game with you down in Oakland, just listening to her interview and you can pick up on these certain things pretty quickly. I guess once you've been around the block X amount of times, you kind of understand what makes for a good interview, what makes for a pro, what kind of things that they do. And at least listening to Patty, one of the things I love this about journalists, and especially people that do those sideline reporting. They ask the hard-hitting questions, but they ask them directly and they don't beat around the bush. And I think one of the things when we talk about word economy and choosing what words to use in what instances and how to approach conversations, I think Patty has a very good understanding of what it takes to be a good interviewer, to be someone who understands that job well, a professional, if you will. And so, again, a limited experience in working with Patty, but again, from what I saw, at least in that little bit, that she's got a lot to offer. And Kennedy too. I know Kennedy's done stuff with us in the past. At least watching that award show from last year, she was kind of the host of that. So she'd bring it in and then she'd throw it over to you guys for a lot of the hosting. But she's a staple over there too, and she does a lot of in arena hosting, which. Here's the thing, like if sometimes I feel like arena hosts and people who do play-by-play and anyone who's good at public speaking, like to that degree or make something exciting, like the broadcasting realm is not too far off for you because clearly you don't have a fear of being behind a microphone and you don't have a fear of people hearing you do that. And so for her, I know she's over in Flint doing that. She's over doing, a couple of other things. So that's a good combination. And we talked about it with Dean Linke, like the women's game, the soccer environment in the women's game in the United States is very healthy. I mean, it's really popular at the college level. It's obviously really popular at the international level, but where does all that start? It starts down at the lower levels. And I think the reason being is because obviously what the U.S. women's national team has accomplished, again, over the years, is that a trickle-down effect. And that has led to the excitement, the level of excitement, participation in women's soccer in the United States, to where, we talk about some of the culture issues and getting the men's game to the next level. Women, in a lot of ways, they don't have any problem with that, because they've been there, done that, and they want to continue to do that. And we still have one of the best, at least, programs in the world when it comes to women's soccer. Now, are other countries catching up? Yes. Obviously you have your Japans who are now very good. You have your, Australias who have gotten better, Canada, obviously over in Europe, but the women's game is extremely popular. So having more female voices on our platform is only going to help push that out more. And so I think Patty and both Kennedy are amazing selections. So just kind of adding to the star power, if you will, of what we got over here at NSN.
Yeah, I want to play this video real quick here, and then we're going to hop into this Club World Cup talk. I want to get that in here today. So let's take a look here at this 30-second video about what's coming up here on Sunday.
Join me and Dan Stickrat as we reveal the preseason watch list in each division for Michigan high school girls soccer. Who are the teams to watch? Who's ready to make a statement? Find out only on NSN.
Boom. So that premieres this Sunday night, 8 p.m. live. We have a busy day on Sunday. So we've got MASL games, we've got American Premier Soccer League games, and we've got our live show. So we got a lot going on Sunday. So you can watch that show along with other shows on YouTube and Roku here on Sunday afternoon and evening. So this Club World Cup, FIFA Club World Cup, coming here to the United States here, starting in less than 94 days, okay? And there'll be there's a total of 63 matches will be played across the United States, 32 teams from 6 different confederations preparing to compete for glory. There are 2 teams from the United States, the Seattle Sounders and Inter Miami. Will be playing, and their clubs will be playing in this tournament. Starting here in roughly 94 days. They'll be in Seattle, Los Angeles, Cincinnati, Nashville, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Charlotte, Atlanta, Orlando, and Miami at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which we know that's going to be cool. Bank of America Stadium. You've got, just TQL, which is in Cincinnati, Ohio. The Rose Bowl, I mean, hey, a lot of these games will be streamed on TNT, and that'll happen here again in, if I'm not mistaken, I want to go back. They actually have a countdown thing here on the homepage, I believe. At least I thought there was a countdown. It's gone now. But either way, 90 or so days away. Again, the Seattle Sounders and Inter Miami. Inter Miami's in Group A. Seattle's in Group B. I don't believe there's any other teams from the United States in this. There's some teams from Mexico. Yeah, so that is it. But that kicks off here in just 3 months.
Yeah, and we're getting into that. I talked about crossover a little bit earlier. Like that's how it goes, at least for individual play-by-play. But we're getting into the busy season, the busy season, and it'll be interesting for me to see how the women's field plays out, because I know at least one person in particular, and this is someone that you have a relationship with, Josh Hickey. What can he still accomplish in the future, because it's amazing. Because we got obviously the cup on the women's side, or the crown, the state championship on the women's side, and then the state championship on the men's side too. So he's been doing a lot of great things. So we'll see exactly what happens with him and with that. But all the different leagues and stuff too, it's going to be all encompassing. I'm excited for the MASL playoffs too. You're talking a lot about the Ron Newman Cup, and I know we were chatting yesterday about obviously Chihuahua and San Diego coming up on Friday, which it'll be a great game. Looking forward to covering that one with Dan. But it's to those who are watching the show, like, it just seems like day by day, week by week, we're starting to welcome on new leagues. So we're gonna have a lot of different teams, a lot of different games for you guys to consume in the coming months. And as I said, JT, this is the exciting time. For us, we're getting into that time of the year where things are really starting to pick up. So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited for all of it. And I say we have a great crew for it. And the nice thing about it is, especially covering games with Dan, you talked about encyclopedia and knowledge. I feel like he kind of keeps everything on track too, especially on the TV side, just letting them go. So it'll be a good stretch for us for sure.
It definitely will. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the line here. We'll continue to announce those things in the coming weeks. We announced today our continued relationship with the Flint City Bucks. That was announced here this morning on our website. And obviously Flint City Bucks and Flint City FC, they've been a staple in soccer in Michigan for quite some time. And we will continue to broadcast those games for them on our platform here starting in May. And we are extremely excited, about that. So there's a lot of really exciting things that are happening. We'll continue to make more announcements about more teams that we've got coming down as well. So USL League 2, USLW, a number of other things that we've got cooking. So yeah, a lot of really exciting stuff.
And the truth is, it's really convenient to be able to consume these games, and I want to make sure that we get that out to people. Like, this is kind of the one-stop shop, and I'm going to be dropping a lot of these preview videos because I know you sent me over some of the other stuff. So we're going to be getting that up and getting that on, and hopefully bringing you guys in. But just tell your friends, share this platform. If you like what you see, let us know. The beauty of what we do, and you've alluded to this a lot, JT, is the fact that we control our space. So if we control our space, that means we get to change things and move things as we go, and make it better for the viewing experience. And that's the whole reason why we're bringing back the ranking show, as you talked about earlier. Like, it's, again, upping that experience for kids playing this game, because we know how saturated the other markets are. How can we cultivate something in our own game to really kind of elevate that to the next level? So that's where all of this is really exciting. We are coming down the pipeline here. We're going to start getting more games, obviously doing play-by-play, but we're not just a live streaming company, right? This is all inclusive. So, if you feel as if maybe there's something we could do better, or maybe we could touch up, we're open to all that. But it's really continuing to get better. I'm just excited to get over there and see what the new facility looks like, because I know you're sitting in it right now, and obviously I'm used to going and doing games over there. So things are moving and shaking as we go. And I know this is something that we allude to a lot on this show, but trust me, it's only going to get better from here.
Only going to get better. But that is a wrap here on episode number 43 in the books officially. It was a late comment day. We'll forgive anyone that was listening, tuning in, watching, and didn't comment. We'll forgive you for that. But either way, we'll be back at this again tomorrow, same time, same place here on Inside the Game. Again, a lot more exciting stuff coming your way. Keep an eye out on social media for all the things that we're doing. We'll continue to improve on that as we continue to grow. But a lot of really exciting things that are coming here this afternoon, later tomorrow. Make sure you check out our website, thenationalsoccernetwork.com, for more information about all things soccer. Again, so much stuff coming, here, and we couldn't be more excited about that. But yeah, Peter, have a great day.
Thanks, Peter.
For Nathan Wangler, I'm Jonathan Turner. Don't forget, hustle.
Hustle.
Right there, hustle. Get your hustle on. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on Inside the Game. This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.